Taking my time, make sure he counts. Oh, look at him. Look at that. Absolute beast of fish. Look at him. Probably fish of 12 pound again. Oh, and what a fish to finish on. What a fish to finish on. Now, let's see if I can hold him up. The others are a little bit too big to do this, but see if I can hold this one up. Absolute monster of a fish. Look at the size of that. Paste is an absolute deadly bait this time of year for catching great big fish when I don't want to feed on anything else. So I'm going to show you the bait, the rigs, and how to catch those great big fish. Let's sort the bait out and then we'll get fishing. So here we are, we're almost about to fish. I'm just going to prepare the bait and show you how I do it, and then we'll get on with it and we'll catch some fish. So basically, some fishery 2 mils. We'll put a bag of them in. A little bit of water on them to soak. Just going to fill that, just cover them with water. I don't know if you see that. Just cover those pellets with water and then soak them for about a minute. I'll come back to them then, drain the water off, and they'll be perfect. The paste itself is the Pro paste. It's the original one. It's an absolute fantastic paste. It takes on loads of water and you can fish it very, very wet because it's quite fibrous. So I'll put a whole pack of that in. Now, like I say, it does take a lot of water. So just pour a lot of water in there. I think you've overdone it, but trust me, you can't overdo this. Lots and lots of water in there. It's a very, very messy way of fishing, but very, very effective at this time of year. So, a little bit more. That's the paste done. It will take on a little bit more water once it's dried out. I'll just add a little bit more water, but that is absolutely perfect wet paste for catching big carp this time of year. So I'll just leave that a little bit and I'll come back to those micros and then I'll add a little bit of water back to my paste, and then it'll be perfect to start fishing. So those micros have been soaked now for a minute. Just gonna tip them into my fine mesh landing net, squeeze out all the excess water, and then they're absolutely perfect here. Just leave them to dry on the side here. Now my paste has dried out a little bit, so I'm just going to put a splash more water in there. I do like to fish my paste really, really wet, so just add a bit more water in there. I'll keep a tub of water on my side tree. So I do like to fish my paste really wet, so that perfect now to fish. So now the bait's done, let's get on to the plumbing up and the fishing. Right, so that's the bait done. We're almost ready to fish. Just talk you through the rig. So I got 13 hollow elastic, which I think is a lovely elastic. It's lovely and soft when you strike into the fish. It's got plenty of power to get these big fish out. It's all 19 mainline, really strong, durable mainline. You're open to catching big fish and lots of them. It's a Preston pace float, number 2. It's a brilliant float for pace fishing because you've got an eye on top of the bristle. So when you're shipping out, you're not going to get that line tangle over the bristle. Absolutely fantastic float for that. And then down to the business end, which is the hook, I've got an 0.17 hook length, 6-inch hook length, to a size 14 GPM. Now if you notice, I've got no weights at all down that rig. No weights at all. The way I like to fish my paste is I like to use the paste to cock the float. So I'm not going to use any weights down it. There's 3 reasons for this. One reason is I don't want to get false bites from the weights bouncing, fish knocking the bolt and making the float bounce. So I don't want to get false bites like that. It makes the rig very strong and durable because there's no weights pinched onto the line, so there's no weaknesses at all in that line. And then the third one is because I like to fish my paste really wet and really sloppy. When that paste comes off, that float will just pop up a little bit and lay flat. And I know the paste has come off and I can bring it in, rebait and go back out. So that's the 3 reasons I use no weights down my line. I'll just quickly show you how I plumb up and we'll get fishing. So what we're going to do, I'm going to get this plummet, just run through the plumbing up. So just going to ship that out to where I want to fish. I'm going to fish to the end of my number 5 section in line with that pallet. Now, if you look at that, plumbing up to the float, I'm just going to let the plummet drop and see how the plummet's cocking my float. That's what I wanted to do because I want that paste. I want that paste to like cock my float. Now, I will fine tune it as I'm going. But basically, that's what I want. Pesky wasp then get in my face, but we're on a bit of a slope there. It won't matter really. That's perfect, that is, for what I want to do. So now we've plumbed up, we know that that paste is going to cock my float. It's ready to start. So what I'm going to do, I've got my paste here, so I'm going to keep wet. I like to fish paste really wet, and this method is really good for this. So I'm going to get my cupping kit. I'm going to cup 100 ml of micro pellets and a little dollop like that of paste. And that's how I'm going to start. So I'm just going to cup that in there now. And then basically, from then on in, unless I really need to pull some fish in, from then on in, I'm just gonna use the paste to feed my swim. Right, so now we've plumbed up. We're ready to rock and roll now, so now we've plumbed it, ready to rock and roll. We fed out bait and we're ready to go. So I'll wet my hands a little bit, get myself a good dollop of paste, just fold my hook into the middle. So there's my big dollop of paste. I've wet my pot a little bit because I don't want it sticking in the pot, so just done that. And ship out to the middle of that, and my pot's a little bit further down the pole, so I just shipped out past my number 5 and then just come back to where my number 5 is. Now you can see there that the paste has cocked the float. Now with paste fishing, you normally get a lot of activity in your peg. And what you want to do is you want to really sort of look for those jagged, positive bites. Don't strike at everything. It's all about distinguishing what's a bite and what's not. Now it is a really messy method, so make sure you've got that little thing of water beside you so that you can wash your hands off. Just drop it back in again there. Let the piece go down, cock that float. Now as you can see there, probably need to take a little bit off that float, or just push the float a little bit to the right. We are fishing on a slope, so I've lined that up right with the middle of the platform. So there is a chance that I might need to go a little bit to the right of the platform just to get that float to sit tidy, or just take a little bit off it. Just going to take a tiny bit off that float. I want to be down to the bristle. So the first couple of casts, just been sort of fine tuning the way my rig sits. Now you might have to do this throughout the day. What you will have is sometimes the fish dig the bottom out, so you might have to alter that throughout the day as it's going. But as we're just starting, don't need to do that at the moment. As you can see now, the float's sitting there as if I had weights on, but it's actually the paste that's cocking the float. Now when a fish comes into my swim, I'll be able to see the bite develop a lot better than if I did have weights on. If I had weights on and a big fish comes into my swim, when he comes in and bangs the line, those weights will bounce, and it causes the float to bounce as well. So with this method, you don't get that. And hopefully it won't be too long before we get one. This is an absolute unit of fish. Look at the size of that. Now that is a type of fish you catch on paste. Oh, that's got to be close to 20 pounds. Just goes to show how effective paste is. Absolute root of the fish, that. I'm not going to pick him up because he's too big for that. But that is an absolute beast. I'm just going to put him back in the net. We're into another really big fish on a piece. I think I'm going to call it a day on this one. We've got 6 really big fish, and I mean really big, sort of like smallest probably 10 or 12 pound, biggest is probably close to 20. Absolute juggernauts of fish. As I said earlier, that 13 hollows working beautiful. Not putting too much pressure on them. You know, they're big fish, they're hard to get on the hook. Just want to take your time and get them out. Haven't seen him yet. Oh yes, he's a real big fish. I've seen a big tail back then. Another sort of big 12 pound fish. Real big one. Strong tackle, never let you down this forgiving elastic. If I was really bagging, I'd probably step up to 15 hollow. So when you're only catching odd, real big fish like this, you know, this 13 hollow is absolutely fantastic for it. Just taking my time, make sure he counts. Oh, look at him, look at that. Absolute beast of a fish. Look at him. Probably a fish of 12 pound again. Oh, and what a fish to finish on. What a fish to finish on. Now, let's see if I can hold him up. The others are a little bit too big to do this, but see if I can hold this one up. Absolute monster of a fish. Look at the size of that. So there you are guys, lovely paste fish. Get out on a bank, follow my tips, and you'll be catching fish like this.